Her triumphs? I took a group of women that didn't believe in themselves, and I just believed in them. Her trials?
I never wanted to go to practice. I was losing a ton of weight.
Her story?
I just put my faith in God and just trusted the system.
Her why?
I want people to see what I did and say, oh, that's so awesome. I'm going to be better than that. That would be how I hope that this journey ends.
This is Her Why, where we tell the stories from BYU women's sports. Here is your host, Lauren McLean.
Kenzie Koerber Dahle is a 4-time All-American volleyball player and 5-year starter at the University of Utah and BYU. She was the 2021 WCC Player of the Year and is now part of BYU Athletics' corporate sponsorship team. Our interview with Kenzie was recorded in early 2023, so some of the references might be dated. Thanks for coming on, Kenzie.
Thanks, Lauren. It's good to be here.
Hey, we had the opportunity to work together a couple of weeks ago on men's volleyball, and you did color commentary.
I did.
For the very first time. How did that go for you? I mean, from my perspective, you were incredible. How did it go for you?
It was good. I mean, I was kind of nervous Friday night coming into it. It was like I sat down and I was like, what are all these buttons? But so I think as the game went on Friday night, I got more comfortable and then I felt good Saturday. But it's definitely different than sideline. You definitely have to be more on and attentive the whole time. But it was super fun. It was fun working with you and Jerem and kind of chatting with you both throughout the broadcast. So it was a blast. I hope to do it again sometime.
We're going to get into that a little bit more later, but a lot of things have happened in your life since you last played volleyball for the Cougars. First and foremost, you got married. Nate only spent 1 season playing for the Cougars, and you only spent 1 year playing for the Cougars. How did the two of you meet?
Yeah, so we met here at BYU, which was lucky because everyone was like, you're going down there to get a husband. And then it was like August and I still hadn't met anyone. And I was like, maybe I'm not. But yeah, we just met through one of our friends. So his best friend from high school was dating one of my good friends just from being down here. And she was up at their house for they went to the fair in the summer and they were watching one of our games and his parents were like, oh, you should date number 4. And then my friend texted me, was like, I'm at the Dahle's house and they said that Nate should date you. And I was like, well, tell him to message me and whatever. And then it was a few weeks he had followed me, but hadn't messaged me. And I texted her again. I was like, why hasn't he messaged me or anything? And she was like, well, I told him it would scare you if he messaged you on Instagram. And I was like, what? No. So then he messaged me and I had never seen him at school before. I mean, granted, I wasn't really around besides for practice. So, but I was walking to class one day and up the staircase, the RB stairs that are awful.
Yes.
I saw him stop and talk to someone. It was the day after he messaged me and I was like, I'm scared. So I just stood at the bottom of the stairs for 5 minutes until he walked up and then I was like, was that you on the stairs? But yeah, so then we hung out every day for a week straight. And then we kind of just went on dates for a few weeks. And then, yeah, we became official early September, October of 2021. So.
Oh, I love it. And you're 6'2", and he's what, 6'5"?
6'6".
6'6"?
Yeah. So
I love it.
Gonna have some tall kids.
Yes, you are. Like I said, the volleyball team is already recruiting your future children.
I know, right?
So Nate's from Tremont in Utah. That's a smaller town in northern Utah. And you're
Yes.
from Chino Hills, California, really close to Disneyland.
Yeah.
Did the two of you have a lot in common when you started dating? You kind of come from different backgrounds, different places?
Yeah, we definitely, the small town is different for me. I mean, I thought I was from a small town in California, and everyone's like, oh, how many people? I'm like 100,000. So I'm like, I guess it's not small, but for California, that's small. But yeah, we actually did have a ton in common. He definitely grew up doing a little bit different things than I did. They just had to find stuff to do in a small town, and I would just go to the beach or hang out by my pool or that kind of stuff. So it wasn't super different, but there were some things that I was like, oh, I definitely didn't do that. Like throw eggshells off a freeway ramp. I'm like, that would never come across my mind. So yeah, there were some things, but for the most part, we were pretty even on everything.
Yeah, I wouldn't think to do that.
Yeah.
Nate, but it sounds really fun. When did you realize, okay, I can marry this guy?
So we started... I kind of started thinking about that in actually, in like January, he was the one that was like, I told my dad, like, why wait any longer when I found the person? I was like, wait, what? Like, that's like on the table? I was like, that's so weird. So it was like January's when his season started. And then it kind of got more serious in like March-ish of like, okay, we actually looked at rings during Christmas break. But I was like, oh, it's still like a ways away, but it was just like for fun. And then it was like, okay, January, February, he said that. And I was like, so are you ordering a ring? And then my friend who works for a jeweler in Fullerton was like, when you guys are ready, like, let me know. And so I like sent him her information. And I guess he ordered the ring in March, but it's a lab created diamond. So like they have to like grow it in the lab and stuff. And then it was just like months of like, I thought he had it, or like they went to California to play and I was like, oh, he's going to pick it up. But then they like were staying in Los Angeles the whole time. So I was like, how is he going to get to Fullerton? And I was like, maybe someone's picking it up for him. So it was like months of like just this like, not mind game, but I was like, okay, it's coming. And then it didn't. And I was like, okay, I'm sad. Okay, but it's coming. So it was probably like March-ish is when I thought it was going to happen. We ended up not getting engaged until August. And I went out to Florida when he was there and we got engaged in Florida. But yeah, I thought we were going to get married in like August. So I didn't end up going pro because I was like, that's a whole nother story. But yeah, so to answer your question, probably around March was.
Wait. Okay, so you ended up not going pro because you thought you were going to get married around that time.
So I had signed to play in Puerto Rico right after our season ended in December. The season was supposed to be January to May. So it's like a shorter season, but they still pay good money and it's on the beach. So I was like, of course, that's like the only place I wanted to go. And then I signed the contract and everything. And then on New Year's Day, I got an email from them because they wanted me to come out January like 10th. And we had finished playing like December 18th. And I was like, absolutely not. Like, I was like, I am not mentally ready for that. Yeah. Physically, my shoulder's like about to fall off. Like, I need to get that under control before I go. So they were like, okay, you can come out January 30th and then be here until end of May. And so I was like, okay, I signed. It was like sad because I didn't want to be long distance, but I was like, it's only a few months. Like, we can do it. And then on New Year's Day, they sent me an email and I was like, oh, it's probably just like, here's your flight information, like, and I opened it and it was like, we decided to postpone the season until May because of COVID. And I was like so taken back because I was like, that is like 5 months away. Like, it's not like just a month or so later. Like, I was like, that's 5 months away. I live in Utah. Like, how am I going to pay rent? Like, I was like, I could move home, but I didn't really want to move home and like practice at my old club. Like, I was like, that's kind of weird because the girls are like 18 and I'm 23. Like, I was like, I wouldn't be getting the kind of competition that I needed. And so I was kind of like, my agent was like, okay, like, so should we just have you sign for May? And I was like, well, let me like talk to Heather and see. And because I was like, if I can practice with them every day, I could still stay in playing shape. And I was lifting with our strength coach here and stuff, but Heather was like, we have 19 girls. Like, we can't really get you reps, like live reps. Yeah. And I was like, and then I thought we were going to get married in August. So the season would have been May to like end of August, I think. And so I was like, I just can't do that. Like, I can't stay in playing shape. I would need a job to pay for rent, whether it just be coaching or something small. But I was like, I have to pay for rent and stuff. So I ended up just saying, like, no. And it, like, tore me apart. That whole year was, like, so hard because I mentally wasn't ready to be done.
Right.
And then it was just kind of like, okay, you're done playing volleyball. So,
wow.
Yeah, that was, like, really hard for me.
Wow. So wait, so is professional volleyball completely off the table now, or is that something you want to train for and get back into?
So I've kind of thought about it. I pretty much took that whole year of 2022, just like I didn't play at all, really. Like, I kind of coached before I got my job here in the athletic department, and then I would like jump in and play with the girls a little bit. But I just was so distraught by it. Like, it just like came out of nowhere, and I was like definitely scared to go because it's a different country. Like
Right.
English isn't the main language and stuff. But I was like, it's only 3 months. Like it'll be a good experience. And then I had options to go to Europe, but I've just heard so many things from girls that play in Europe that it's like it's so hard. Like I've talked to a few girls who came back early this year and they were like, I was just so unhappy. Like
Wow.
just being away for that long and being that far away from home is like hard. So I didn't want to go to Europe, and then I was just kind of like, I got into this like, I'm done. Like I was so sad and upset and like distraught that honestly just like turned my mind off to volleyball and kind of tried to forget. It was a very weird coping mechanism. It's very weird when you finish playing. For
Forget
anyone
you were
that,
a 4-time All-American.
Yeah, for anyone that's listening, let me know if you need help after you're done, because it was a roller coaster. But I was just like, nope, just I'm going to focus on work. Like, that's it. And then I kind of started playing in like some city leagues, which is like, it's hard when you play at the level you did and then you go to that and it's like you're not as good as you were, and it's different, but it's actually been really fun for me, and I've kind of gotten like really competitive again. I was actually talking to Heather about it the other day, and she's like, I think you can go play, and I was like, I don't know about that anymore, but it's probably, I'd say no. I've read books and I have seen players that like go in and out of retirement, and I don't feel like that really gives you the opportunity to fully like close that chapter in that book and like remember it for what it was and move on to what's next in life. I feel like when you go back and forth, you're kind of like stringing yourself along of like, okay, you're in retirement for 1 second, and now it's like you got to totally uncover that competitiveness again. Like, so I just felt like it was better for me as a person to just like remember my journey and remember my last season as what it was, which was great, and like kind of have that memory and not really like keep coming back and forth, if that makes sense.
It absolutely does. Yeah. It absolutely does. Yeah, I can't imagine how difficult it is for athletes that have played at that level and then to, like you said, mentally be like, okay, am I done? You know, am I moving on? Am I doing something else? That's got to be really tricky, I think, for everybody that has played at that level. But you've found some amazing things to do, some amazing jobs. You started a couple jobs here at BYU. Tell us about what exactly you do for the athletic department.
It was actually kind of crazy, like how it unfolded. So I was at a men's volleyball game, and Sister Cordon, the young women's president, was there, and I like met her because she was sitting with Liz, and then Liz texted me a few days later and was like, hey, like Sister Cordon was really asked me like, where's the girl that transferred from Utah? Like I want her to speak, because she was speaking at the PLC here. And so she texted me and was like, I just like had this prompting that you needed to speak. And so I went and I spoke at the PLC up in the Hinckley Center, and it was just like a quick, like it was just about, I kind of forget what it was about, but it was just about like my experience here and the people here. And I was like, didn't think it was that great. Like I just kind of spoke from the heart. Like I didn't have anything written down or anything.
Wow.
And then afterwards, like tons of people were coming up to me and were like, because I mentioned in my talk that I wanted to be here at BYU in the athletic department. And they were like, what do you want to do? Like, I will tell Tom, like, he needs to hire you. And then Tom came up to me and was like, I just had 2 people offer to pay for your grad school. And he was like, what do you want to do, like, here? Because they were like, you need to hire her. And I was like, I don't really know. Like, and then I had kind of, my cousin's brother-in-law does corporate, he's the general manager of corporate sponsorships up at the University of Utah. And so I kind of almost interned for him when I was up there. And then in the summer, but he's like, we don't do a ton in the summer. Like, so it ended up not working out, but I kind of was like, I remember what he does is pretty cool. So I reached out to Jared here because my cousin's brother-in-law is good friends with the guys down here. And I just kind of met and talked with Casey and Jared just about like what it's like working in their department and in sports. And they didn't even have a position available at that point. Like I just came to talk with them. And then a few weeks later, Casey reached out to me and said, we have a position coming available. I want you to apply for it if you want to. So I ended up applying for it and then interviewed for it. And it was super cool. Like I loved the team. And then, so I ended up getting the job in April. So pretty much what I do is like we have our 5 sales guys and then each sales guy has a fulfillment rep. So whatever contracts they go out and get with whatever partner. So Matt and I, like our biggest client is Mountain America. Uh-huh. And then after they sign the contract, it then goes to me to like fulfill all the assets in the contract for football, basketball, Olympic sports, radio, TV, all that kind of stuff. So I do Matt's fulfillment for all of his contracts. We have about 21 contracts, and then I'm over radio for all of the sports that have radio and making sure we get our spots from our partners. Yeah. And then I'm also over all Olympic sports, LED promotions, game entitlements for all the Olympic sports. And then I also am over suites now for football. I was over Champions Terrace last year, but now I'm over suites this year. So it's kind of a ton of stuff all at once. We do a ton of events too, which is super fun. But it's just honestly, the team is just so great that it's like makes it so fun.
When we come back, Kenzie talks about fitting in as a sideline reporter for BYU Broadcasting, playing 2 types of volleyball at the University of Utah, and her mental health struggles her first couple of years on the court. Welcome back to Her Why. Let's continue our conversation with Kenzie Koerber Dahle. This interview was recorded months ago, so some of the references might be dated. You somehow found time to be a sideline reporter for BYUtv for volleyball, men and women's basketball. Mm-hmm. So when you first started doing that, was it something that came easy to you, or were you like, whoa, this is more difficult than I thought it was going to be?
So it's actually funny because I've always wanted to be in the broadcasting world. Like that's ultimately always been my dream. And I loved when I played, like I loved being in front of the camera. Like there were some girls on my teams that were like, oh, I don't want to be interviewed. And I was like, pick me. Like I just loved it. Like I loved being in interviews. I loved being in front of the camera. And so I watched some games before and I kind of knew like what to do. And I showed up for women's volleyball. And the first game I did was the Duke volleyball game. And I was like, there was thousands and thousands of people. Like it was like such a I couldn't even hear myself think. Like I was super nervous in that open. I was like, because it was just like, all right, go. Like I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm so stressed. And then everything that happened that game, like it was just crazy. But no, I definitely feel like it came pretty natural to me just because I know a lot about volleyball. Yeah. Like that was honestly the perfect sport for me to start with because I also knew the program very well. Yeah. Women's volleyball was, I think, pretty easy for me. Women's basketball was where I kind of had to discover like, okay, this is going to be more based off of like what I hear in timeouts, like based off of what the coaches say in the interviews because I don't know as much about basketball. Right. And then men's volleyball is pretty similar, but it's also different in its ways. Yeah. So it's definitely been like growing and learning and kind of figuring out like, okay, I took no notes for women's volleyball. Like didn't have any notes. Like I just like went with it because I was so like, jealous of I was like, I was like expected that to be every sport kind of. And then I got to women's basketball. I was like, I definitely need to like be writing what they're saying down because I'm like, in the paint, whatever that means, you know, like, so I've definitely learned over the course of the year kind of, and now I just feel like notes are like my security. Yeah. Like, even if I don't need them, like having them, I just feel better. So it's definitely been cool to kind of like continue to develop in that sense. But yeah, it's been so fun and it's been amazing. Like I've loved every second of it.
Well, you do such a good job.
Oh, thank you.
You really do. You're so good. You're natural at it. Let's start from the very beginning. So all of this wouldn't have come about if you hadn't started playing volleyball back in California, but volleyball wasn't your first love. You played soccer and golf growing up. So why didn't you stick with either of those sports?
So golf was just, I mean, my dad wanted me, I just have one sister. So it's just me and my sister. My dad never had a boy. And I feel like my dad kind of used my sister as a boy sometimes. Like, he'd get her like a BMX bike for Christmas, and then
She's all,
thanks, and
Dad.
like then it was kind of me as well. Like, my dad loves golfing, so he tried to get me to golf. And I was like, I'm okay at golf. Put me on a course, and I'm like, oof, like not great. But like driving range, I can hit a ball. Like,
Yeah.
So golf was kind of when I was really young. I mainly just wanted to go drive in the golf cart with my dad. I did have my own set of clubs and stuff, but then I started playing soccer because my dad's best friend's daughter did. And then I got really tall and like really fast, and I'd go up and like try to knee a ball, and I'd like hit a girl in the face, and they would like call a foul on me, and I was like, hello, I'm just like twice their size. Like, I didn't really like running either. Like, I was like, this sucks. So my parents were like, you're probably getting too tall for this. So they put me in volleyball because my neighbor like had a scholarship for college, and they were like, we don't want to pay for college, so let's play volleyball. And I hated it. Like, I literally couldn't serve over the net or hit a ball over the net for like
How
a
old
year.
were you at this point?
I was in 7th grade.
Okay.
And I was so skinny, like had nothing on me. I didn't really even gain any muscle until I was like a junior in high school, even maybe like junior in college. Like, it was I was just stick skinny. Like, I had no power, could not serve over the net, and I was like, I hate this sport. But then I would go home, and we had a park, like a neighborhood park, and the monkey bars were about the height of the net. So then I would count back 30 steps like in the sand, and me and my dad would go, and I would just try to serve over the monkey bars. And then I would like finally get over the monkey bars, and then finally it was like one day I hit a ball over the net, and I was like, I love this sport. So yeah, I played volleyball since 7th, 8th grade. I was on a twos team my 8th grade year, I believe, at a club that was closer to my house. So it was in like Rancho Cucamonga. And I never played. My coach told me that I would never play, that I would never be good. And so it was like a really rough year because I never saw the court. And then I was like, I'm going to switch clubs. And so my high school coach coached at T Street, which was in Irvine. So a little bit further away, but my sister actually cheered right next door to it. So I went with my mom and sister to a cheer practice one time, and one of the coaches at T Street just gave us a tour and stuff. And he was like, we'd love to have you here. Like, they were just so nice. So I tried out, made the 16-1s team. I believe that's my sophomore year. Freshman year? Sophomore year? I think it was sophomore year. And then that was I had a coach my 16th year that just like really invested in me. And that's when I feel like I got decent. I don't think I was great in high school, but because I was left-handed and tall, like colleges sent me letters. Like, it was super fun. Every day I'd like run to the mailbox and see if there was like a new letter in the mail. And it was like, I still have all of them at home, just like in a pile in my nightstand. But yeah, so that was like the club I played for my 16s, 17s, and 18s was like what changed my life. So
why is being left-handed an advantage?
It's just rare. It's harder to block lefties. Lefties like do weird things, but most hitters are right-handed. Like, most volleyball players are right-handed.
Yeah.
So it's nice when you get a lefty because it kind of throws off the other team of like where to set up their block and stuff. So
you were a coach's dream, honestly. 6'2".
Yeah, except
lefty.
I was like so skinny. So they were like, let's figure out how to get some power behind this.
Get some
swing.
muscle on the screw.
Yeah.
Well, you end up as a star volleyball player in Southern California, and you were named the league's MVP your senior season. How did you end up? You mentioned you got a lot of letters from a lot of different colleges. How did you end up at the University of Utah?
Yeah, so my family lives up here. My dad's sisters moved up here when they were about 18, and then they all have 4 kids who all have little kids now. We never really made it up here much except for like once for a wedding and I think one other time. And it was my junior year. I had already had a few offers that I was kind of deciding between. And in volleyball, they usually recruit you from club tournaments, so not really high school. But we came out to a tournament in Las Vegas for high school, and the University of Utah assistant coach was there. And I saw her sitting there, and I was like, oh, cool, like it's a Pac-12 school. And then afterwards, my high school coach came up to me. She's like, hey, would you have any interest in the University of Utah? And I was like, sure, I don't know. Like, I'm from California, so like all my schools were like beach schools, like UCLA, I loved Santa Barbara, like just being on the beach. Pepperdine was like my dream school. And I was like, University of Utah, like, all right. Didn't go on any visits outside of like Southern California. Like any visit I went on, my parents were like, it has to be in driving distance. Like we're not flying somewhere to take a visit somewhere. But I was like, okay. Like, so they reached out to me. We ended up going on an unofficial visit the week of Thanksgiving. So we drove up here and like stayed with my aunts and stuff in Orem. And they actually offered me on the spot. And I was like, okay, yeah, like I'll think about it. And then we went back to Orem and we went to like a Mexican restaurant to kind of celebrate. And they brought out like our drinks and my cup had like the drum and feather on it. And I was like, we're literally in Orem. Like that's like not Utah territory. And I kind of was like, okay, that like feels like a sign. But I just felt really good about it. And so I committed like a week later. And it was more because, like, I had family here that, like, the little kids had no clue who I was. Like, and I kind of was just like, I just kind of want to, like, want them to know me. And, like, I want to get closer to my family because we don't have a ton of family in California. So that was a big reason why I came here. I liked that it was Pac-12. Like, my dream was to always get a scholarship to a Pac-12 school. I actually thought I was going to go to the University of Washington. Like, that was my screensaver for the longest time. But I didn't. Like, I wasn't great. Like, I wasn't a top recruit in high school, so I didn't have all these, like, big-time schools. I got good in college, so it wasn't, like, one of those girls that's, like, has every offer from every school possible.
Right.
But then kind of, like, plateaus in high school. So I was like, okay, like, and Utah was good, like, at volleyball. They were always in, like, the top 3 of the Pac-12, so I was like, yeah, let's do it. So that was kind of why I, like, chose to come out here.
Oh, my gosh. I love that so much. So you have family here. Don't tell us the Mexican restaurant name because then we're going to go burn all their cups.
I know, right?
In Orem. Was it a little bit, so you weren't a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints at the time. Was it a culture shock at all when you moved to Utah? Salt Lake is definitely different than Utah County. But what was it like for you when you first moved here?
Yeah, so everyone was kind of like, don't turn Mormon when I came out here. And I was like, oh, I wouldn't. Like, even though
I would never.
Even though my dad's sisters are members, like they were baptized when they were 18. And so I don't really feel like it was a total culture shock. My team had a ton of members, but yeah, Salt Lake and the University of Utah is definitely different than down here. So it wasn't totally like, oh my gosh, what is this? But at first it was like, nothing's open on Sundays. Like, why is that? Like, why is everything closed? Like, I was so confused about that. But yeah, it wasn't too bad. It definitely was. I learned more, I feel like, from my teammates and stuff. That was like, oh, so I shouldn't wear a tank top to my family's house. Like, I was like, okay, I don't really know. Like, but yeah, it wasn't too bad when I made the transition.
Okay. So you were somewhat familiar with it. Well, your freshman year of volleyball, you played in all 34 matches as a freshman, and you also played beach volleyball at the University of Utah, which who knew?
Random, yeah.
do you have a preference between?
Definitely indoor. We just had, so the indoor team was the beach team.
Okay.
And it was like not really talked about when I committed. And I was like, at first I was like not great at, because I actually didn't really play beach a ton growing up. Like I lived more inland, so I wasn't really on the beach. And then when they're like, okay, like we're playing beach in the spring, I was like, what? Like this sucks. Like I was like not very good at it. I couldn't figure out like how to jump and stuff. But the tournaments were really fun. Like the trips we took were really fun for beach. Like they were more laid back than indoor.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm definitely better at indoor, and like indoor better. It's less conditioning. Like beach is so hard. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to throw up. I'm so tired. But yeah, indoor is definitely the way I would go.
Well, after your sophomore season at the University of Utah, things were going really well on the court, but how were things going off the court for you at that time? Yeah,
so when I got up there, I remember driving my freshman year. I was following my parents up with my car, and I was just bawling once we turned in, like on the I-15 and I saw the university. I just started bawling because I was like, this is so sad. Like as a little 17-year-old, like I'd never been out of California, like. And it was just like, all right, go. So freshman year was kind of hard. And then I feel like it got harder that spring semester into my sophomore year. Volleyball was okay. I still did well, but I was just mentally, like I had never experienced like depression or anything. The relationship I was in definitely elevated that, I feel like. But yeah, it was rough. Like I never wanted to go to practice. I was losing a ton of weight. Like I ended up having to meet with our sports psychologist like 3 times a week. And towards the end of our season is when it got really bad. And I was like, I couldn't even practice because I hadn't eaten anything in days. So I was just on another court, like passing free balls while my team was playing sixes.
Wow.
So it was like I was meeting with tons of doctors and I was like 3% body fat, like tiny. And they were like, your bones are literally going to break if you don't. So it was a very dark time. I don't honestly know how I kept playing. Like I look at pictures sometimes from my sophomore year and I was like, coaches would come up to my coach and say like, is number 4 okay? Like it was that I looked that sick. Somehow still managed to be an All-American that year. I don't really know how, but yeah, it was dark for sure.
In our next episode, we will have part 2 of our conversation with Kenzie Koerber Dahle, where she talks about why she joined the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and why she eventually decided to leave the University of Utah for BYU. You can download and listen to all episodes of Her Why on the BYU Radio app or wherever you find podcasts. Her Why is a production of BYU Radio.